Hello everyone, and welcome at the premiere episode here at the Cusp of Freedom, where we'll be talking about why and how we become who we are. We'll discuss the problems of our world and what we can do in our individual lives to make the world a better place or a better experience for those coming after us. My name is Marvin Tikio, and it's an immense pleasure and honor to be the host of this podcast. As you will see, I will be inviting some very interesting, successful people from a wide variety of domains so that they can tell you from their personal perspective why and how they became who they are and what they think you can do in your life to make this world a better place for those coming after us. For this premiere episode, I will of course discuss why and how I became a software engineer. In addition, I will shine some light on from my perspective on what I think some of the problems of our world are and what we can do in our lives to make this world a better experience for those coming after us. Without further ado, I'll jump straight into it. So why did I choose to become a software engineer? Well, choosing to go to college, I decided to attend an HBCU called Virginia State University. I chose this school because coming from Cameroon at the age of 18, I was a semester late from applying to Virginia Tech, which I could have gotten into. And because Virginia State was closest to my home, I decided, why not? Plus, it's not like I was getting a full ride, so it was pretty cheap. So I thought it was reasonable. And because it was an accredited college that offered engineering, I knew that I could get an engineering degree at a low cost than most people that went to more expensive schools. Attending Virginia State University, I decided to go straight on for the hardest major that I could possibly get. And after asking around to a bunch of faculty in the engineering department, I realized that computer engineering was the most brain-stimulating major that I could possibly pursue. Pursuing computer engineering, however, did not help me become a software engineer. Well, actually, I lied. It did because it reinforced my critical thinking skills and my problem solving skills. However, it did not teach me how to code. In order to become a software engineer, I knew that I needed some internships. So throughout my sophomore, junior, and senior year, I did my best to either become a teacher assistant or to get some kind of internship at a company. To sophomore and junior year, I was able to get multiple internships on campus. However, going into my senior year, I was able to get an internship at the Boeing company by attending a conference known as the NSBE Conference. The NSBE Conference is the National Society for Black Engineers it's a conference specifically designed for minorities who go to HBCUs and whatnot. I attended this conference with a goal that I would get an internship at whatever the cost. I had a green card at the moment, and although I could have been an American citizen if my mom had just applied for my passport when I came, things would have been a lot easier. But because she didn't, I was a green card holder, and opportunities for me at this conference were more limited than usual. So although my resume was impressive for most hiring managers at the time, I was excluded or filtered out most of the opportunities that presented themselves to me. However, one opportunity, because I was so persistent, I landed on one opportunity at the Boeing company that would accept a green card holder. This opportunity led me down the path to intern at Boeing that summer. I interned among a team of 5 different individuals from very diverse backgrounds. On this team, I was blessed with a mentor, Sean Walden, whom I'm very grateful till this day, who taught me the ins and outs of software engineering. I learned how to use the CLI, I learned how to work with APIs, I learned how to work with JavaScript, Node.js, and React, and much more like Docker. This internship opened the door for me to get a full-time offer at the Boeing company as a full-stack software engineer immediately after college. Mind you, before I got this internship, I got a bunch of rejections because I had a green card, but I did not let that hold me back. I knew what I was capable of, and I knew I could bring value to the table. coming back as a full stack software engineer at Boeing, later after my graduation, it was very challenging. Although I went to that steep learning curve during the internship to learn JavaScript and learn how to code and all and whatnot, coming back as a full-time software engineer meant that I needed to know how to do the job. I needed to be competent. And so this was very challenging, but I also did not let this hold me back, and I excelled pretty well at my job, and I even learned how to use, APIs. I learned how to use Python and its different libraries, such as pandas. Anyways, that's beside the point. The point is, I was willing and ready to learn, and although I didn't know exactly what I was doing, I knew that one way or another, I would figure it out. During COVID, I got laid off. If you know what Boeing is, Boeing makes airplanes for America, and so their customers tend to be airlines. And because during COVID, there was a freeze on most of the airlines, they stopped buying airplanes, and Boeing lost a lot of customers and had to cut some employees to keep up with the demand. So that's how I lost my job. And because I was not an American citizen yet, I couldn't just transfer from one team to another. This led me down the path to travel or do a cross-country road trip to take my minds off things, and to also apply to a bunch of jobs which I interned for. And I realized that even though I was passing most of the interviews, which tended to be technical interviews, I still didn't get the job because it was so competitive, and I had a green card, and it was just one hell of a journey. So I went back home from Seattle to Virginia, and I tried to start a business. I tried converting e-bikes or regular bicycles into e-bikes for people. That failed tremendously. I also tried developing websites and for that e-bike thing, and I just kind of gave up on it after I got a full-time offer at IBM. Getting into IBM, I became a DevOps engineer, and now I do automation tests. Getting into IBM was pretty challenging because I went to a 5-round interview, 2 technicals, 3 interpersonal interviews, and I would say I did not really prepare because I was working on my businesses, but because I had a mindset that no matter what was presented to me, I would figure it out. I think that was what made me able to get that job. Now, further down the line at IBM, I decided that I would stay at IBM even though the company or the organization that I was hired in was getting sold off to a different company. So I decided to stay at IBM, and I switched teams from Watson Health to Data Power, from a DevOps engineer to a full stack and test automation engineer, which I am currently today. Now, what brought me to do this podcast? Why At the Cusp of Freedom? Why a podcast which talks about how and why we become who we are and the problems of our world? Well, as a child, I was very curious, and I'm still a very curious person, and I think that asking questions to disambiguate the world you live around is one of the main ways you can know more about yourself and know more about the world you live in. I've always wanted to help people because I hate seeing people be homeless. I hate people suffer for no reason. And I hate people waste their potential, even though I waste mine most of the times. But anyways, that's beside the point. I think starting this podcast was a glimpse of my journey from asking the question of how I can make the world better for those I see suffering. At first, I wanted to build homeless shelters for the homeless. And then I realized that no matter how much money I earn during my living, I would never be able to feed and shelter every homeless person on this planet. However, I realized that if I'm able to educate or find a way to educate people, I'm sure that they have the capabilities to do it for themselves, because I'm not that special. I feel like a lot of people have more potential than I, but have a harder time finding what it takes to bring that potential out. Hence, this podcast, At the Cusp of Freedom, I hope will help people understand what they need to do in order to widen their perspective, gain the confidence they need, the confidence and charisma they need, and be able to unlock their potential and be whoever it is they want to be in life. Now, there's a reason why I'm not doing this podcast and like re-quoting inspirational statements or quotes, because this is not an inspirational podcast. This is a podcast so that one can see themselves in my shoes or in the shoes of anybody else that I invite on this podcast and say they want to be like them or like us or better. I want one who's viewing this podcast to be able to see why we choose the path we choose and be able to see the challenges we go through and understand that they can do like us or better. Or they can choose their own path to success. There's multiple ways you can be successful, and there's multiple ways you can see this world. But it's so important that you gain the perspective necessary for you to maneuver through this world and live an experience that is so intense and so worthy of yourself. Now, I've explained why I became a software engineer. I love to challenge myself. I was very curious, and I think that led me down the path of getting into computer engineering, and later I think I chose software engineering because I wanted something that would allow me to be remote. By remote, I mean that I wanted something that would allow me to work from anywhere in the world. America's great, but I do think it's a critical thing for people to understand that America is not the only place in the world that they can live happily or experience life. There's so many beautiful places, so many unique cultures that you can experience to widen your perspective. And then most importantly, there's so many different people you can meet that can give you a perspective on what it means to be successful. Most Americans don't have passports, but I genuinely believe that if most Americans did have passports, and if most Americans unlock their potential to be the best person that they can be throughout this experience of life that we only get once, then I believe that it will leave a domino effect for those coming after us to live a life or an experience worth living. We're currently going down a road where everyone is self-interested and everyone, of course you want what's best for yourself, but you got to think about it. I think it's not about getting handouts. It's about people being better. People understanding that they should have more authority over their lives, and people understanding that they are capable of dreaming their reality. Yes, you are capable of manifesting shit. You have to believe. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to have faith. You have to walk in fear, but you have to believe in yourself. You have to do what's best for you. You have to invest in yourself, and then you have to invest in those you love without expecting anything in return. Now that I've spoken on how and how I became a software engineer, I will shine some light on what I think some of the problems of our world are, and what I think you can do in your individual life to make this world a better place for those coming after us. Now, there's a lot of problems in our world. I think about this a lot, and I know many people don't, but I can't stop myself from thinking about so many different things that make 90% of us remain in poverty, or at least 80% of us remain in poverty. 90% of us remain, you're just getting to that economical threshold, and you don't even have enough to take risks and start a business. And the other 10% or 5% of us that do have the opportunity, not take that opportunity to help others. There's so many problems that I will highlight on this podcast, on this episode, and so many problems that those whom I invite on this podcast will shine the light on, which you can think about a little bit for yourself, and think about what you can do on an individual level, so that on a granular level, if we all do this individually, we can see the world become a better place. Global warming is a big problem. Free speech is a big problem in most places besides like the United States. There's a bunch of things like self-interest. We don't care enough for one another, and a lot of people get abused. There's like trauma, and a lot of people have traumatic experiences. But here, I will shine some light on what I think you can do in order to alleviate your trauma, live a better life, or be better, be more productive, so that if you take this into consideration and put in the work, and if everybody does this, I think we will be living in a better place, and especially those coming after us will have a better experience. One of the main things I feel one can do in their lives is to do what's best for them. I think it's great to listen to people's advice. I think it's great that you're tuning into this podcast to hear what I have to say, but take everything with a grain of salt. You have what it takes inside of you to be what's best for yourself. Take every single thing you hear with a grain of salt, and by no means should you have any doubt in yourself. Believe that you're capable of doing whatever it is you put your mind to, because honestly you are. That's belief in the truth, because the truth is you can do whatever, and you can be whatever it is you want to be. Now that's just like the caveat of things, because I know a lot of people grew up in environments where they feel like they're doomed, or they feel like they have to be there for their family. Yes, that's great, but in the world we live in, you have to do what you think is best for yourself, and then once you've reached that level where you are what's best for yourself, then you can help those you love or those who you need to help. In addition to that, I feel like it's important, and every successful people that I've met thus far, I've realized that the one thing we have in common is that we travel. If you don't travel, you live in a narrow mindset, in a narrow perspective. And the decisions you make in life are highly dependent on your perspective. The better your perspective, the better your decision making, basically. And the better your decision making, the better you become. I think it's so important to gain this wide perspective of the world we live in, because it can help you make better decisions. And the best way to get a perspective is by traveling, going out of your comfort zone, having the courage to travel and meet new people. Of course, you're going to be challenged with not having friends for a long time. Of course, you're going to be challenged with a new environment, a new language that you don't speak. But trust me, the perspective that you would gain by exploring different cultures and by meeting people from all over the world, or by meeting people from where you're from that just happen to end up somewhere else in the world that you are at, it's going to be life-changing. And another thing I feel somebody can do in order to alleviate their trauma is experience different things. Now, I'm not by any means telling you to go try this out, but I've heard that ayahuasca is a great way for one to alleviate all their trauma and all their past or generational traumatic experiences. It helps you deal with what you're keeping deep inside. Now, some people end up I don't know how people end up in certain situations, but by no means, if you feel like you need to look into ayahuasca, look into it. It's not for everyone, or maybe it is, but it should, take your time with it and do it when you think it's right for you. But I do think it's a necessary thing for us to do as as um as individuals and as humans. And from what I hear, from the experiences I hear from other people, it seems like a life-changing experience for the better. So if you really need it, if you're really like in a state of mind where you're traumatized and you feel like you cannot do it on your own, seek help. And if you seek help and it's not enough, then maybe ayahuasca can help. I'm not saying it can, I'm saying maybe it can. Take everything I say with a grain of salt, do your own research, and think for yourself. Be able to listen to what people say and think for yourself. Think of how it resonates with you and how it doesn't. Now, I think I said what I need to say throughout this podcast. And if I could give you one last piece of advice, it would be to be curious. Be very, very curious. Always ask yourself what you can do to be better. And in order for one to build self-esteem, and in order for one to become a doer, I think it's also very important, especially if you're one of those people that have a list of things that you've been putting off. I bet you everything on that list will take you 5 minutes or less to start and 30 minutes or less to finish. If you're one of those people that procrastinate because you're always on your phone, or you're one of those people that miss the opportunity to connect with others because you're always on your phone, I highly recommend you put down your phone, you stop listening to the news, and you go out there and actually have connecting experiences with other people. And I also advise that you actually, I think social media is a big problem to like why people aren't as productive. Like if you have a list of things to do, I challenge you today to do one thing on that list and tomorrow to do the next thing on that list. And I promise you, eventually you will build a habit of doing things and you will feel more confident that you are able to do whatever it is you put your mind to. Those little wins are going to add up and they're going to mean something. And if you don't have a list of things to do and you're struggling to do things, make a list. Even if it's a little objective, as brush my teeth, make my bed, do 10 push-ups a day. Even if it's that little, if you make a list and you check those things off every single day, you are going to be more productive. Because you're going to build that self-esteem and you're going to build that self-awareness that you're able to do whatever it is you put your mind to. Like I said, my last advice is to be very curious. Spend less time on your phone and spend more time doing the things you feel are going to help you be who you want to become in life. It's an individual journey we're going through. It's an individual journey that one should take upon themselves as a challenge, pray for adversity, and pray to be challenged, because the more challenges you go through, the stronger you become mentally and the easier the world becomes for you. Yes, at first things may be hard, but things will never be hard forever. Things will be hard at first, but the more you do and the more you overcome these adversities, the easier things will become. And the more perspective you will have, the better decisions you will make. Be curious, be more aware, and tune into this podcast to hear the perspective of so many interesting and very, very successful people from a wide variety of backgrounds or domains whom I've met and whom I'm honored to invite on my podcast so that they can shine a light and tell you why and how they became who they are and what they think you can do in order to be better or to live a better experience, or in order for you to be better so that those coming after us can live a better experience on earth. Without further ado, I think I will wrap it up by saying I hope you enjoyed this podcast half as much as I enjoy making it. I definitely stole that from like a Drake song, but thank you so much for tuning in for 20 to 30 minutes, and I hope you have a wonderful day. See you soon. Thank you.